do. I do. Well, I do take pens.
Okay, I think we are ready to go. Kristen, I just texted you a paper that I need you to get me when we're done. So, this evening, as we begin, our Boy Scouts are going to open us, and thank you so much. So I'll let them take over.
Please stand for presentation of colors. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Color guard, halt. Colors, cross. Will the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard. Color guard, reform. Forward. Audience at ease.
Good job.
Thank you so much, and let's remain standing. And Mr. Fuchs, Doyle Fuchs, with the Southern Idaho Ministry Network, is going to open us in prayer. And thank you so much for being here.
Certainly, certainly. I just want to thank you for being our city council and providing such a wonderful place for us to live. Thank you. Father, thank you tonight for your word and for your spirit in our lives. And we thank you tonight because the Bible says, let everyone be subject to governing authorities, for there's no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that have been in existence have been established by God. So we can trust that each one of these council members tonight have been approved by you. And we thank you, Lord, for all of these city servants that you have placed in those positions. We pray your blessing upon and wisdom upon our Mayor Kling tonight and this council as they deliberate in business. And may the Lord bring prosperity and protection and peace upon all the citizens of Nampa due to the accomplishments of this council tonight. We pray your blessing and guidance upon this city council meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And to our scouts, I'd like to say thank you so much for being here. Does that conclude our time with them? Well, great job, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Mayor Kling, do you mind if we call him back up so I can take a picture of him?
They may have already dispersed.
They're coming.
Do you have pins?
Just come on up front here, gentlemen, and we want to take a picture of you. Mayor, you want to get in that picture?
We certainly can. And then, Amy, we need to get pins for them. Thank you. Okay, we'll run around.
Now, they look short, but they're about as tall as I am, so. All right, boys, look at me just for a second, will you?
Let's all, council, can we squeeze in and we can get a picture of them and our council?
Yeah,
Let's
good
do
idea.
that.
Let's do that.
So Amy will get it from that side. So come up here and the council come right here. How's that? We'll let you.
All right, so get up front.
I'll get up front.
Let's go this way. You're gonna face out there. We're gonna do, here, let's put a couple on this side. Okay, there we go. Is that working? Everybody in? Are we all in?
All cameras still working.
Are we there? Thank you, boys.
Hey, young man.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Thanks for coming
Thank
tonight.
you so much.
some cool patches on the back. Keep thinking of the movie Up. Have you seen the movie Up?
Uh-huh.
Boy Scout trying to cut his badge. It's a great movie.
Merit badge.
Okay. So let's start with a roll call.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Brunner,
Here.
Hogaboom,
Here.
Levi,
Present?
Haverfield,
Here.
and Skog is absent.
Skog is under the weather this evening, and I encouraged him to please not join us and share his virus with us. So he will not be joining us.
He's not calling in either. No.
I think so.
Okay.
He's not
You
feeling
did
well.
that once, Councilwoman Levi.
Yeah. Okay, to my knowledge, we have no adjustments to our agenda. Anything to remove, we can't add anything. And if there is none, I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, Sandy.
Sandy, excuse me, Councilwoman Levi, do you have something, was that just going to be a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We're good.
Next time, we'll let you have it. Okay, so roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
and Rodriguez.
Yes.
So this evening, we don't have any proclamations on the agenda. And with that, there is always an opportunity for any Nampa residents wishing to speak on an agenda item or a non-agenda item. Do we have anyone here this evening that had intended, we don't have anyone signed up, but is there anyone that had intended to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item this evening? And seeing none, we will move on to mayor and council comments. And I just decided to make some comments this evening. And mainly because, you know what, it's been 1 year. And it's amazing how fast, there's a few of us that just completed our first year. And it's amazing how fast the year goes. And so just a couple of thoughts as we've completed the first year and enter into the second year. I wanted to start by saying what a pleasure it's been to work with the council. We have a great team here and just really have appreciated working with them, and it's a pleasure. And I think our community is blessed to have the people that are serving, and so that's important. And I'm extremely pleased and appreciative. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to do a couple recaps from the year. You know, a couple of highlights. At the beginning of the year, a year ago, we took a citizen survey, and our citizens said, what's important? And they said streets and public safety were important. And, you know, we got some work done on streets this year. I can take no credit for it. But who does take credit for it is our streets department, Public Works. They've gone after grants. They've managed the street projects. We got through a number of projects in our community this last year, and people all the time say thank you. And so that thank you, I can't receive the thank you. I will just say we have amazing people that got it done. And I so appreciate our streets department, Public Works, and the work that they did. We also got through the bond for our wastewater facility treatment plant. That was big. We're still in the midst. We've got a lot of work, and we've got work ahead, but that was quite an accomplishment. You know, our streets department has put together a funding plan for streets for the future that will have the opportunity to implement, and I appreciate that work, which has been great. You know, the other thing, this is the kudos to Public Works, the work that was done on our consultant fees. Because what we decided to do this last year, because of the work that you guys did, was look at the return on investment of actually hiring some internal employees so that we could save on our outsourced costs. And the goal is to save $3 million over the next 5 years. And we've begun moving forward on that plan. It takes a little bit of time, but that was great work and appreciated that. So we hired 6 new police officers because the one thing that everybody said was public safety was important. And that's, again, to the council and the approval to fund 6 new officers plus a couple of other positions within police. We also successfully negotiated a fire contract and a police contract. And again, that's thank you to Councilman Hogaboam and Skog were the council members that were part of that team. I felt good about what we ended up with. Because again, the people of our community said public safety is important. And so that's something that we did this last year, and it's moving forward. The other thing that we did was that we've ordered a Quint truck, and the squad came in, and we're using impact fees to help fund some of our equipment, but those are good things. And they're going to be cost-saving things for our community, positive impact. And so that's again, it's another move forward. We are experiencing significant growth, as we all know, and it's been one of those pain points. We've had a lot of discussion, right, about traffic at our council meetings. But with that growth, the people of our community have said growth needs to fund growth. And so what we're doing, and you'll see it on our agenda next time, is our public hearing for impact fees. For the last number of years, we've only been funding 50% of what we could have been collecting for impact fees. And there's a recommendation to increase our impact fees so that growth truly does fund growth. That's important because we're listening to what our citizens say. I'm encouraged that Downtown Nampa has a revived board on their BID, and that's great. We need that. We're working through a strategic plan for our downtown. We've had a number of citizens say, okay, so what's happening? Caldwell's beating us. Because you hear a lot about the Caldwell downtown. And this year, I would like to have moved faster than I could. But unfortunately, you can't move fast on certain things. But I feel really good about the people in place on our downtown board and the Main Street project, it's an initiative that's going to be moving forward. So we're not neglecting our downtown. It's actually going to be moving forward, but it takes time to have a really solid plan, and we'll have a good plan in place as we move forward. The other thing that comes to my mind that I didn't have on my list is our golf course. You know, we had that major discussion about our golf course. Well, we are submitting a plan to the state now that we have a new governor in place and a new director of health and welfare. We've got a letter that will be going out this week requesting the renewed lease, a long-term lease on that golf course ground. And so I look forward to getting that executed, and the goal will be to have it executed by late spring prior to our budgeting cycle. So we've, last year, the review that I mentioned at the beginning of the year, we're getting ready to send out a citizen survey again. And that citizen survey is going to be good. We're going to send out a similar survey every single year so that we can benchmark and see where our results are changing, if we're going up, if we're going down. But in addition to that, we're going to be surveying and asking different questions. As we work on our strategic plan, the council is going to be meeting in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be looking through mission, vision, goals, priorities. We're also going to be doing outreach to our citizens so that our citizens are hearing what we're doing, and you guys have input. What are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? My number one, it's hard to say there's the one thing, but we talked to our departments about the one thing this last year when we did our assessments. And I have to say, my one thing this year is customer service. That we as a city provide good customer service to the citizens of our community. And that looks a lot of different ways depending on which department it is that's providing the service, but it's important that we do that. Our comp plan is in process. We're not quite done with that. It's the strategic plan. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, that is a revised vision statement, mission statement, and goals. So that's good. Values. In our mayor's office, we're talking about our core values. Core value that we've talked about internally is integrity, which is trust, being trustworthy, being honest, excellence, and selfless service. We'll be meeting as a council and talking about what those core values are that we want to adopt as a city. We've met with our department heads and talked about, we did a SWOT analysis recently, we reviewed it today. We're going to continue to be talking amongst the department heads about their vision to where we then as a community, the city, staff, council, and citizens have a collective vision for who we want to be as we move forward. I'm excited about that. Because when you get up every day, what is that North Star, right, that's guiding you? Who do we want to be in 10 years and in 20 years for the city of Nampa? And so I'm really looking forward to this process. I think it's going to be a good one. It's also going to help drive our objectives and our priorities within the city. What's important is that we're here to serve our community. So we've got great leaders in the employees that we have in our city. We've got excellent working relationships with agencies in collaboration as we work on projects. And I would say the greatest highlight this last year is the people. We have such amazing people, getting to know the people of this community, because that's what makes Nampa great. I have to say, it's our people. There's a sense of community here, and I love that. Walking with the kids, I did that in the month of October, and it was so cool. I tell you what, every decision we make, I am passionate about looking at our kids, because the decisions we make are going to impact our kids and our grandkids. And what's important is what we leave for that next generation. Those are the decisions that we make up here all the time. And I don't think any of us take it lightly. We take it with great consideration as we desire to serve our community. And so, like I said, customer service is important. The last thing I'm going to mention is that we do have the State of the City coming up on March 20th. It's going to be at Columbia High School again. And that's because the date just worked as we were looking at when to host it. It's going to be from 4 to 6. From 4 to 5 is the State of the City. And then we're going to do what we did last year, and that is we're going to feature the Nampa School District Culinary Program. They are amazing. The food they put together, we'll have the jazz band back and have an opportunity just to gather there in the commons there at Columbia High School and visit following the State of the City. So we'll go into more depth on where we're going. We'll have our strategic visioning part done by then. And so we've got a lot going on, but it's good. It's really good. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to get to serve this community. And so it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a responsibility. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and do a really quick year in review. And when I say what we've done, it's we. It's we together. It's we with staff. Because there isn't one person that does all this. It takes everyone working together to get the work done. So anyway, it's a privilege to serve, and we'll talk more at the State of the City on the 20th. And that said, would council like to share anything? I talked quite a long time.
I would, if you would. I would. I want to thank Mr., is it Fulks, Sir Doyle? Thank you for praying for us, because there's sometimes that prayer, we need it. And to have someone come in and give us a good passageway and mentorship and fellowship, that means a lot to us. And I want you to know that. That's dear to our hearts, so thank you, sir. This is my first year. I'm the oldest one up here. I'm 68. This kid here is what, 54? Are you 50?
Try 65.
Oh, never mind.
That was a compliment.
That's a good one.
How about this kid here?
That kid's
He
25.
just turned 40.
That's
Just
crazy.
start shaving.
I know. But I publicly wanted to thank you, the community, for helping me become a good councilman for our city. And I'll tell you, without our veterans up here, Darrell, Randy, Bruce, and Sandy, it'd be tough for me to really understand and focus on what direction we need to go. So thank you for your help and support, for leading me where we should be headed for our city of Nampa. Now, the mayor and I, we don't always agree, but we don't always disagree either. And it's been a learning curve for both of us and for Rick. And I just got to tell you, this is a position that I cherish, and that I go and I learn and I find out. Poor Tom Points and transportation people, and because I make them tell me what is the best direction. And then I'll go to the community members like Glenn, and I reach out to everybody that will listen. Norm Holmes is another one that I really pay attention to, and of course my fellow Burleyite over there, Darren Johnson. But it's important that you have a voice, and that's what this council said to you when we ran, that you would have a voice. So God bless you all, and thank you.
You feel pressure?
No, thanks. It's been a privilege serving. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the firefighters. There's a constituent from the city Mr. Dan Cadwell, he wanted to make sure that his regards got passed on, so I'm using council comments as a privilege to, he extends thanks for the fire department responded to a call that he made, and he thought his detectors were pretty old, and they replaced his detectors, and he's a gentleman who can't get up on ladders to do that kind of thing, so he was very much appreciative of the firefighters doing that. They were from Station 2 on Greenhurst. He didn't get their names, but he wanted to extend thanks to all the firefighters. New Year's Eve, our plans fell through as a family, so I decided to do a ride-along with the police, and I just want to do a shout-out to our police. New Year's Eve can be an interesting evening. That's why I chose to go party with the police on New Year's Eve. But there was one call, I'll just leave the officer unnamed, responded to, and he had to go in solo at first to a home where there was some tense activity occurring, and not all those people were happy to see him, and there's a lot of danger that our police put themselves into, and I gain an appreciation for that from a distance, sitting in the vehicle. Another officer showed up quickly and ran onto the scene, and they had to kind of separate people. But I'm just thinking, if you're just one officer there and there's people surrounding you and you're solo like that, that's not, Victor knows better than any of us what that's like. And so I'm just thankful that we have such dedicated members in our public safety department and first responders who do such a great work day in and day out in our city. So when you see them, thank them. So.
I can't miss following up to say that's why we continue to add officers to the force, because that's dangerous. And I hate to see that when we send one in alone. So, are there any other comments this evening before we move on? Sorry I took so long. So probably ready to get the meeting going. Okay, if there are no other comments, we have the opportunity this evening during our agency external communications to have Amy Schroeder come with ITD to talk about the I-84 corridor project coming up. And I just want to say, Amy does an amazing job for ITD, and we have really appreciated the working relationship with ITD. As we've asked a ton of questions, I've been on the learning curve this last year, and we've talked a lot about Highway 16, made recommendations, but you guys are so responsive. And thank you for the work you do, because it's massive across the state of Idaho, so thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, Mayor. Mayor and council members, I'm here to talk about I-84 briefly this evening. We have a public meeting coming up, and that is listed in the flyer that you should have in front of you. January 22nd in Nampa and January 23rd in Caldwell. But just real quick, give you an overview of what we're doing on the Interstate 84 corridor. So we're looking at this corridor in three kind of pieces, three segments. And you can see that in your handout. It's also up on the screen. I think you also have an 11x17 handout with this information. If looking at the graphic or your handout, let's start on the right side. So in Nampa, between the Franklin Boulevard and the Karcher interchange, we have construction beginning this year. And that is reconstruction of the north side interchange and rebuilding I-84 to 3 lanes in each direction. That will go on through next year, 2020. All right. We're also working on an environmental study, and that goes into Caldwell, but we're taking that in 2 pieces. You can see them here on the graphic. The center piece is the one that we're focused on for the open houses at the end of the month. This is advancing the expansion of I-84 from the Karcher interchange to the Franklin Road interchange in Caldwell. This is looking like, and we don't have our environmental document yet, but it's looking like 3 lanes in each direction and rebuilding the bridges and the canal crossings and everything that goes with that. Then the left-hand side of the graphic, this is a study that will take a little bit longer, and so we're able to advance Karcher to Franklin Road, but we need a little bit more time to study the improvements that are needed in Caldwell. So there'll be another public meeting later in the summer for the improvements in Caldwell. So this is our timeline. The expansion of I-84 from Karcher interchange to Franklin Road it's the boulevard, the road, right? There's 2 Franklins. Franklin Road that's in Caldwell, that will be under construction in 2021 and take a couple of years, all right? We don't know the phasing yet. We're just still working on the environmental, the cost estimates. To the public, this construction is going to be continuous. The construction in Nampa won't stop and then start going to Caldwell. It will just be continuous. So this is our approach. We're doing this because of different environmental clearances that are necessary. But if you have any questions, I'd love to answer those.
Mayor Kling. Amy, Mayor Kling mentioned Highway 16 extension to the freeway. Has there been any further discussion? There's a lot of interest in that extension for north-south traffic. Can you share what ITD's plans are for possibly new overpass or new extension to the freeway?
Mayor and councilman, I think that would go over my 5 minutes that I'm allotted tonight.
Oh, okay. Can you say yes or no?
There is, we are making progress on that. I would love to come back and spend a little bit of time. We're currently evaluating alternatives and looking at refinements within the footprint that we set with the EIS, with our environmental impact statement. Once we have some of those screened or kind of fleshed out a little bit, may I come back and present that then?
Oh, I wish you would.
Yes. we
Thank
will.
you.
We would love that, thank you. Are there any other questions? I just want to say thank you for, and congratulations, and this is old news, but the I think it's $1 million infrastructure grant that was received by the state of Idaho was massive. And that's been very helpful in the funding for this and moving forward with Highway 16. But I think that was one of the largest single grants. Am I correct in saying that? You could speak to it better than I.
Mayor, it was the largest grant that Idaho has received.
There you go. And that's awesome. So thank you for the work that went into that, because that's important. I'm excited that we're kind of first in line as we get this work done. And that's going to be awesome, because it's not going to be easy, right, over time. But I have to say, last year, when you guys redid the roads, you resurfaced roads, was that last year or the year before? Whenever that was, you did it. It was done so fast and so efficiently, it amazed me. So kudos
Thank you.
to ITD.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And Tom Points, I think, has.
Oh, sure.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So I'll start my staff report, and the first item is actually a thank you to ITD. So we wanted to, Mayor put together this letter thanking ITD for the work they did on I-84B, so second and third through downtown, and then underneath the underpass and over by the park. So that was a great project for us. We needed that pavement to be repaired, and like Mayor said, you got in and out, and it was well done. We really appreciate that. So if you could pass that on.
I definitely will, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Very special.
Thank you.
Okay, so continuing on the staff report, we have a snow report. We've had about 3 events to date and about 17,000 gallons of de-icer. So a crew's been out there spraying de-icer ahead of the storms to be proactive, and we're ready to go if and when more comes. So another one here on north side. So we'll continue with the theme of I-84. So this is in your packet here. So engineering and parks and ITD have been working on a landscaping plan for the north side interchange. So this is the configuration of the new interchange. It'll be a single point urban interchange, all going into one point underneath the bridge. So ITD is allocated $400,000 as a replacement cost for the landscaping that's out there today for something new. So the teams work together to come up with something that's cost effective, long-term maintenance will be less, and nice looking for Nampa. So this plan shows a mix of shrubs and plantings close to the road, and then it has some rock mulch, and then it also has some areas that are green and mowed and transitions into dry land grass. Today there's about 7.5 acres of grass that needs to be mowed at north side, And this new plan will have actually 1 acre of actual grass to mow, so quite a bit of reduction on the mowing. But it'll still look nice and good and have a lot of good vegetation there. Show you a few pictures of some of the plantings that they're putting in the planting strips.
Mayor Kling. Tom, that's a 10-mile like overpass. When is that anticipated to be constructed?
Mayor, Council Haverfield, this, 2020 is what I just heard Amy say that is when it'll be completed.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's some more pictures in your packet of the planting, so that's in the works on making, for the landscaping plan. Let's see, what's next? So we've got a road construction project that we're gonna be starting here over on Greenhurst. This up here. So Greenhurst Road, basically from Juniper to Midland, will be our major reconstruction project this year. We're gonna do this project in phases, so we're gonna start with the pipe culvert work now while the irrigation water is low. And so we're gonna work on the Wilson Drain and the Bray Lateral, and those are right in front on Greenhurst Road, right in between Albertsons and Walmart. And so we've put together a detour plan, which you can see here for folks to get around this road closure. The road closure will be about 8 weeks roughly. And we have a plan in place that we can maintain business access during construction. We've been in contact with the businesses that this is coming. So we're going to start this road closure here in the next week or two.
So Tom, have we, on that, I even myself, I didn't realize the extent, how far that closure extended back onto Greenhurst. Do we have an internal telephone line that people can call? Are we going to have a phone number set up if they have questions or problems? And then I think something just for the council to know, we're going to be having some discussions in the next 2 days just about our community campaign, because I'm not as in tune as I want to be. And I realize it's more massive than I realized it was, because I thought you could still access Albertsons and Walmart, and I found out you cannot from Greenhurst, if that's correct. And if it is, that is pretty massive. And so I think it's really important that we have an excellent community campaign and communication, because it's actually going to impact and again, I didn't realize this until today, that kids walking to school, because there's more closure on sidewalks and things than I think I realized. And so I just want to ensure the public that we as a city are doing everything we can to communicate and mitigate the inconvenience on this particular one, because I think what I'm seeing is that if you were coming down 12th Avenue and you were trying to pick up Greenhurst, where you would turn and it's just south of Albertsons, I forget the name of that little street, and then you pick it up on, on that, by Sunny Ridge, the retirement home there, that road back there, that is not open. You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to actually go around a different way, I think. And unless I'm wrong, I think it's just going to be really important that we have an excellent communication plan.
Mayor, you are correct. The Sunnybrook,
Can you enlarge that? Thank you.
so you are correct. The intersection of Sunnybrook and Greenhurst will be part of the construction and will be closed. So if someone were coming behind Albertsons here and trying to pick up and come this direction on Greenhurst, they would not be able to do that. They would either need to come down to Amity and down and around, or they would need to pick up at either Locust or Dooley and come down and take Sunny Ridge up to the intersection there to bypass the construction.
Okay, and the work is actually taking place almost down to Juniper?
So the roadway construction is all the way from Midland all the way to Juniper. The laterals that are being done, the Wilson Drain is located between Sunnybrook and Greenhurst, and then the Bray lateral is between Juniper and Sunnybrook, so either side of that.
Mayor Kling. Daniel, Florida, Hawaii, and Constitution Way will still be open. They're not affected by this.
Correct, they would still be open. They're not the signed detour, but
Right.
obviously the locals,
People will do that.
yes.
Mayor? I was talking to a brown bus driver this morning, and she was talking about when there are detours, et cetera. Are they notified at Brown Bus Company, for instance, that this is coming up? Because I see several buses going in this area.
Mayor, Councilman Levi, yes, Brown Bus has been notified, and we've been in communication with them for a number of weeks on this detour.
Great, thank you.
This is a very heavily trafficked area on the way to work and on the way home from work. And so that's, but the signs have been out, which is great. Appreciate that because they've been out there and positioned well in advance. It's going to be the initial piece of rerouting and figuring out where to go.
Yes, Mayor, and we did send out a letter including this map to the adjacent properties and to the adjacent subdivisions around there last week, so they should have received them later last week or start of this week. They'll receive that letter.
So Mayor, answer to your
go ahead.
question regarding internal phone, though, if somebody does have a question, wants to get a hold of the city, how best do they do that?
On the letter that we sent out, there is a phone number for our projects.
Okay.
That comes to the engineering department, that we would address any concerns or questions, route them to the appropriate project manager and take care of their concerns.
Okay, so the goal will be that someone actually answers that phone?
Yep,
And if not, it has the appropriate message, right? And that we will get back to them.
yes.
Good. And this is that coming back, and you guys have heard it, customer service is the number one. And that means communicating, over-communicating, right? That people really understand what's happening and what the answers are, right? Right. Thank you.
So Madam Mayor, may I ask, I realize the hard copy newspaper sometimes doesn't get read, but online, so I see Aaron is out here, so is this something we're gonna be able to get into the Idaho Press also? It's already been posted online to my knowledge. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, council. Question on fire dispatching out of that recent local station. What detour route are they taking? Or maybe you can just follow up and answer later, I'm guessing.
Which way they're going.
And notified chief that there was going to be a closure there, and he said, I appreciate letting us know. He didn't tell me where
Okay.
his route would be, but,
Okay.
you know, emergency services, you know, if we can let them through, we'll let them through, even during construction.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Let's see, so, let me zoom this back out. So the next thing we want to do is talk about the wastewater program. We got quite a few updates for you. So we want to just kind of highlight, since we're talking about beginning of a year and end of a year, we want to kind of highlight what we're planning on 2019. So in 2019 for wastewater, we're planning on finalizing the $165 million loan from the DEQ. We're also planning on getting a reuse permit to put the wastewater into Phil's Canal. And we're going to start design of phase 2, which is to get to our final phosphorus limit, and then complete construction on phase 1, which is our intern phosphorus limit. So also the second item we want to talk about is probably you may have noticed the Clean Water Act, and Trump has proposed a change to that rule. Actually, so where we're at with that right now is it's draft rule, and it's in a comment period right now. There's a 60-day comment window, and NAMPA does plan to work with legal to submit a comment on it. It's not something that we can use today, and because generally how these rules work is that, especially with the Clean Water Act, it'll get millions of comments from across the nation, and each of those comments need to be addressed, and then there's usually some lawsuits involved too. So we don't anticipate a final rule for another 3 to 4 years. So we'll be well down the road with our wastewater construction. From what we could tell from the rule, doesn't change the designation of Indian Creek from waters of the U.S. We don't believe that this rule will help with that. What it does do is it, up here in this graphic, it excludes some wetlands that used to be jurisdictional. So this could be a wetland that's not connected to a waters of the U.S. that could be filled by our farmer or developer. That's, from what we can see, that's the major change at this point, so. Some more news on the DEQ loan. We're getting instead of the 165 all at once, we're getting pieces of it to use to continue with our construction. So the first phase will be at $37 million, and we needed to have our environmental document approved. That was done back in December, and so that set the stage for us to final the $37 million loan. So we'll be back in February with some loan documents for you to look at there. And phase 1 construction. So phase 1 is our intern phosphorus limit, and we've got 3 different things that we're trying to do in there. Our liquids handling, a digester, and then our solids handling building. So we've got about 80% of that construction completed. Plan to have that done this summer. There's some photos in the packet if you're interested to see some of the construction. They're making great progress out there. And then lastly, in the staff report, we have an annual report that we send to DEQ for the wastewater program. We sent that out in December, and basically just as an update on the compliance and where we're at with the program. So some of the highlights were 2018, we approved a facility plan. Right now, we're about 80% done with phase 1 construction, and we're working with the Phyllis Canal on the reuse. Also, we've had some preliminary feedback from the DEQ on our reuse permit. It was all very positive, and there wasn't anything in there that we could not address. So we're feeling pretty good about where we're at today with that. Any questions on the staff report?
Mayor Kling, just one. If you could, in 5 words or less, just basically state what a categorical exclusion determination gives us for this proposal.
So categorical exclusion is, it's an environmental document, and it looks at impacts to fish, wildlife, natural resources, and so it's a document that when you're working with federal agencies, you got to go through and prove that this isn't, what we're doing is not detrimental to the environment.
So the giving us a categorical exclusion for our wastewater treatment improvements, what does that mean? Is that a positive?
It's positive.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, just simple positive, negative.
It's thumbs up.
Okay, thanks.
Tom, thank you for your work and your team. You guys are doing a great job. You know, maybe everybody else knew this, but something that came to my realization in talking to Tom the other day was that Nampa is the largest full-service city in the state of Idaho, because there is not another city, Boise or Meridian, that are full-service cities. So we fund, out of our general fund, stormwater, like the Greenhurst Midland, right? When you've got to do that, that's coming out of our general fund. Our streets are coming out of our general fund. In Ada County, they have ACHD, they have a separate levy, and the cities don't have the oversight of stormwater and streets as we do. So we have a great team. You guys are doing a really good job. Michael, you did a good job too. And you grew up a team. I can't skip you back there. But thank you. There's a lot of work that goes on here. And sometimes I don't know if we as a community really realize that. So I just want to say thank you. Good team, good job.
I appreciate your support and counsel.
So we do not have any unfinished business this evening. Number 5 on the agenda is pending ordinances that are postponed due to a lack of supporting documentation. So we'll move on to new business. And item 6.1 on the agenda is an action item. This is to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract with EKC Inc. for the remodel project for the Nampa Family Justice Center.
So move.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? Needless to say, they've reviewed the packet. We're there. Oh, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Thank you. Action item 6.2 on the agenda is the reappointment of Erica Hernandez and the appointment of Mary Knight to the Venue Management Advisory Committee. And I don't see Erica here this evening. I've appreciated her service on that committee for a long time. And is Mary Knight, or it goes by Robin, is she here this evening? I'm not seeing her. Anyway, she comes very well qualified. So I would stand for a motion to approve the reappointment of Erica and the appointment of Mary Knight to the Venue Management Advisory Commission.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay,
I was going to let sit.
I'll let Sandy do it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is an action item, and it's to authorize Parks and Recs Department to give a 30-day notice to terminate the letter of agreement dated September 4, 2018 with the South Valley Homeowners Association. And Darren, I think, is here to speak to that issue.
Mayor,
Yes.
while Darren's coming forward, I need to disclose that I have been working from the inception with this HOA of South Valley. Wonderful people. I understand why this agreement has to be dissolved and reworked. I'm disappointed in that, and I wish that we had all these responsible people that really want to invest and clean up and make things look beautiful in our city, as we did. But I also appreciate Darren and Cody going to bat and helping us to come up with a solution with the Meridian Irrigation and coming to a workable agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, for sharing that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilwoman Levi. This was a project that Nampa Meridian Irrigation District did a construction project, a cleanup of the drain. During the cleanup of the drain, there were native trees that were already in the drain, mostly elm-type trees, Russian olives. Well, during that construction, all of the trees were removed by the irrigation district. We worked with them. After the trees were removed, the homeowners association came to the city. The city owns the property that is outlined in blue, and asked if they could put some trees in there. We said, yeah, we'll work with you and put some trees in there and allow that. A step that we missed is going back to the irrigation district. They took issue with it because of the easement, and so they have requested that we terminate that agreement and work out a different agreement with them. This agreement that we have with the homeowners association, what it would have is trees, and there's only a few trees planted right now, I think 2 or 3 at the moment, that would need to be taken out. The problem with the new agreement is that we will be able to have some bushes, but we won't be able to have trees. The irrigation district sees that as a maintenance issue. They cite back to an agreement that was with the city in 2003. We were aware of the agreement. We just simply, it was a little bit of an unusual project because usually we work with the irrigation district on new construction and we go through the whole start. Here we were just replacing trees and kind of missed the step of getting their permission. And so we think it's in the best interest at this point to terminate the agreement with South Valley Drive Homeowners Association, and that's what we're requesting tonight. And then the next item addresses the new agreement.
Are there any questions?
I do, Mayor. Darren, did the HOA lose any money after or did they invest in this as an HOA?
Yeah, they had a couple trees, so a few $100s. What we will agree to them, we haven't, although I believe they kind of know that this is happening, we haven't felt like we should go negotiate with them until the council authorizes this agreement to be terminated. What we would do is take the trees, reimburse them for the trees that they planted, and then with those trees, we would plant them in a park. So we're
Oh, I see.
just a couple $100 probably.
yeah.
With the trees, they're fairly small trees, maybe $300.
Oh, okay.
And so we would do what we can to make it right with the homeowners association.
Oh, good, thank you.
Mayor Kling. Darren, it appears that in the blue area, most of that property is on the north side of the drain line. Is that correct? So were the trees
so-
added on the north side of the drain, or where?
They were added on the south side,
Okay,
so
so why would they need to be, well, I guess because it falls within an easement?
falls within an easement, and they believe down the road, if they need to get in there and do construction to the drain, that the trees would be in the way.
So the Ditch Riders Road is on the south side of the drain, is that correct?
Yes, that's how I believe that they generally, Cody's shaking his head, that that's where they generally go.
Okay.
Any further questions, comments? So I would stand for a motion.
I'd
If
make a
there's-
motion to author, or allow Parks and Rec to move forward with this agreement, or the dissolution, or dissolving of the agreement with South Valley Homeowners Association as written in this item.
So which is to give a 30-day notice to terminate the letter of
Yes.
agreement.
Sorry,
Okay.
I missed that.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes,
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, and then Darren, the next item, which is authorizing the mayor to sign the landscape license agreement between the City of Nampa Parks and Rec Department and the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
yes,
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Thank you, Darren. Item 6.5 on the agenda is an action item to award a quote to Blue Sky Construction and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the FY19 aerial sewer replacement project.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Rodriguez?
yes,
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 6.6 on the agenda is an action item to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign the task order and contract with Paragon Consulting for professional services on Midland Boulevard, which is restriping. It's West Greenhurst Road to Caldwell Boulevard project.
So move.
then second,
Discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
yes,
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 6.7 on the agenda is an action item which is authorizing the Public Works Director and/or the Deputy Public Works Director of Waters signing authority in accordance with the city's municipal separate stormwater sewer permit, which has been reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
so moved,
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions on this? Hearing none, roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
yes,
Item 6.8 is an action item, and it's authorizing the Public Works Director to sign and submit the 2018 Stormwater Annual Report for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit for municipal separate storm sewer system. It's MS4 permit to the Environmental Protection Agency and the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
yes,
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, so what would the will of the council be? These next three items go together. I don't know if you want discussion or if you've reviewed them enough that we're going to go through them pretty quickly. They're all in the same topic, which is the resolution implementing increase of 3.88%. This is 6.9 on the agenda for the 2019 irrigation rates. The reason I asked that, we're 1 minute till 7. So
Mayor,
we can move into public hearing or not.
excuse me, I didn't mean to talk over the top of you. I do have some questions.
Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and move into public hearing. And then, because, let's see, items 6.9, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12 are all related to one another, and then 6.13 will take place after our public hearings. So at that, it is 1 minute before 7, and we have a couple of public hearings this evening. And the first public hearing, Doug, I don't know if your applicant, is Chad Olson here? You are here, okay, perfect. So the first public hearing is an action item. This is a variance of the required interior yard 5-foot setback to allow a 3-foot interior yard side setback for all the lots at Bella Commons subdivision. This is a Phase 2 PUD located in the southeast 1/2, southeast 1/4, northeast quarter, Section 7, T3N R2W BM for Chad Olson, DBA Envision 360 Inc. And the applicant is here. So Doug, as you come, excuse me, Chad, as you come forward, or Mr. Olson, go ahead and state your name, your address, and we'll let you come and present what you're wanting to accomplish.
Thank you. Council, my name is Chad Olson. I reside at 12790 West Telemark Street, Boise, Idaho, 83713. I am here. I had a couple handouts for you. And is it the best thing to approach and hand you the handouts, or is it better to go on the, okay, let's do that.
We can do both. I think it's good to
Either
have
way.
it on the overhead for the people here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And possibly this is a teeny bit overkill, but I think it's always to have a little bit better information than less information. So the history of this project is we acquired this project. It had been about 10 years since it had been started. It's on the corner of Cash and Flamingo. They've just finished some fourplexes over there. It was kind of an eyesore. Oh yeah, you bet. I'll just rip it as I go. Okay. Kind of an eyesore for a long time for the city. The city, I kind of felt like as we were working through that, staff, the planning and zoning as well as the engineering worked really good with us to try to, help us get that through there. It was kind of a tough one because some of the standards had changed since that had been started, and some of the work had started, and it was kind of like a remodel, if you can do that with a subdivision, although we've done a lot of remodels and stuff, but it was the first time we'd ever done that. And our goal on that was basically to turn lemons into lemonade, and I thought we did a pretty good job. We got it pretty far along. Through that process, that approval, the setbacks, when that PUD was approved 10 years or so ago, the setbacks were not placed, or it was not a topic of discussion. And a PUD is where setbacks do get adjusted. That's where we're allowed in the code to adjust that. And so this kind of caught us off guard a little bit, as you'll see as we come through. So part of this, as you can see in your packet, is just some before and afters of some projects that we've worked on. And I only point this out as some of the before and afters of things that we've worked on because we really want to do a very nice project over there at Bella Commons. And our team, I really believe, is an eye to renovate, repurpose, and restore things and really make that a nice project to the city of Nampa. So our vision is to have distinct and varied architectural elevations. It's not a typical run-of-the-mill subdivision. We want to make it nice. And these restrictive setbacks are limiting our creativity. It could have easily, 10 years ago, been approved with a 3-foot setback. It just wasn't. It was, I don't want to say it was overlooked, but for some reason, it just didn't become a topic of discussion. I build a lot of multifamily. I haven't done very much in Nampa for a long time. I've been on the other side of the Treasure Valley, but I can just assure you, we just sold a 96 unit project right by the Village of Meridian. We sold a really nice 8-plex downtown Boise, And I know for a fact that if these become duplexes and threeplexes, they will be investors that will come buy them. And we're trying to kind of steer this away from the investor and steer it more towards a homeowner type situation. We already have a bunch of fourplexes, as I mentioned, on the corner over there already. I think we need some more affordable housing. I know that we kind of tested the market a little bit, and just in that short period of time, like 2 weeks, I think we got like 30 or 40 calls. It was really crazy, with people really needing housing, and everything seems to be kind of going towards that multifamily idea, which in a way has become affordable housing, but I don't really consider that affordable because you're not owning it. So that's just my own opinion. So I think Bella Commons could be really aesthetically pleasing and affordable. So here's what we've tried to do to mitigate coming here tonight. We went, and the building code doesn't allow, the building code and sometimes the planning and zoning code don't kind of align themselves. Like I mentioned earlier, a PUD is where we would reduce our setbacks and do that. The reason I wanted to show you the before and afters is, believe it or not, this 2 feet on each side of the house, it really impacts the overall look of what we can do on these projects. The building code allows for a 3-foot setback. It's safe. There's a couple things that we have to do to prevent fire is probably the main concern. But what's really interesting to note is that Bella Commons can have no space between the buildings, or 5 feet each, but nothing in between. So you could have none, but you can't have 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can have 5. But you can't have none. But you can't have nothing but other than 0. So the buildings could literally be touching each other, or they have to be 5 foot apart. So what we've come here to ask for is to basically go back in time, revisit this. It's not necessarily that I would know that the intent of what was done 10 years ago with this project, but I can tell you now that this project would look a lot better if we were allowed these setbacks, which are safe. It'll allow us to maybe direct this towards a more home ownership friendly situation as opposed to investors. And I think because the unique site circumstances, and because that PUD did not specifically say that's why we're here tonight. So I stand to answer any questions that you might have. I've met with staff a few times on this just to make sure that I understood their heart and mind, and I feel like we're heading down the right track. So I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Now the time.
I think so, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick question.
You bet.
You're Chad?
I am.
Okay, Chad. The very nature of variance is a hardship. I'm not hearing that there is a hardship. I'm hearing that there's a request to amend a PUD approach. So if you could give us an explanation of what you see as unique about the site, any physical, geographical hardships that are consistent or inconsistent with this piece of property that separates it from another piece of property elsewhere.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but as I talked today with Norm Holm, I've known Norm for 15 years. I'm sorry, I took a blank there. As we began to state and discuss that, in reality, where this hardship comes from is that a PUD, it's not more of a site hardship. It was more of a administrative hardship, meaning that we could have easily walked in here 10 years ago, but because it wasn't mentioned that the setbacks would be reduced. But this is exactly what a PUD is designed for. And maybe if Norm has the opportunity to answer as well, he can maybe explain that from the city point of view, because he specifically told me to put that on here in the sense that there was some unique site circumstances. It's a very tight site as well, so I'm not sure that, other than from an administrative point of view, this just seemed to get overlooked with this restriction.
You talked about unique architectural character, architectural style. I haven't seen anything in the packet that would speak to that. What are you talking about? This is all front-loaded, none of
Yes.
it's rear-loaded.
Yeah, some of it's rear loaded.
Oh, I guess, yeah, there is on the
Some of
right
it's
there.
rear loaded, yeah. I also included all the elevations, so there's 6 different kinds of elevations. They're behind the color photos, with, different plans and different concepts. I think the main thing to look at is that if we end up just saying, okay, let's just make them duplexes, it's not getting better.
Right. Are you anticipating overhangs in that 3-foot setback or not?
I am anticipating overhangs. We worked with the building department on that, and with fire protection, that will work,
Okay.
no problems. And they are safe that way.
And no windows, obviously, on the sidewalls?
There are windows on the sidewalls, yes. There are windows, and they're acceptable in the 3 feet, just not the overhangs.
Okay,
So,
all right. I'll address Norm with any other
yeah,
questions. Thank you,
better-
though.
Better than me, trust me.
Mayor Kling, I have a question. Mr. Olson, I've been reading this statement, and I don't really understand it, so I want you to explain it to me.
Okay.
It says the variance will required 5-foot side setback to allow a 3-foot side setback for detached single-family homes. What happened to the 2 feet? Or is that an issue here?
Well, a couple of things happened on this. When we first submitted plans, 2 of the plans got approved. And there are 2 foundations actually sitting out there that are inaccurate right now. It's not my fault, but,
Those are the pre-existing already.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really pre-existing because we submitted 2 permits and we got back
Oh,
2 permits
okay.
and we went and built them.
Yeah, yeah.
We
okay.
stopped immediately. When we knew there was a problem, we stopped immediately. And one of the very back sheets of that packet you can see is that we've already got like $50,000 invested in this project with setbacks that didn't match. When we submitted the other 20 plans, that's when it got caught. So in reality, that zone or that PUD at the time, it didn't actually specifically say that it had to be 5 feet. It just, because it wasn't addressed, then it became 5 feet. So what we're asking is a reduction down to 3 feet. So from 5 to 3. And that's 2 foot on each side of the house. That makes a lot of difference for us
Oh, I
to
see.
build something and design something kind of nice. If I get to start with a 20-foot building versus a 24-foot building, it's a lot different. So what you do to not give up the design is then you take both buildings and you put them together. And now you have a duplex. Or if you want, you can have a 3-plex or a 4-plex. We're trying to avoid that.
I see. Thank you.
We're trying to avoid
Yeah.
multifamily there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can you give me an idea what the value of these homes is going to be?
I would say that the ones that we had kind of pre-listed already were right around the 200s.
Okay, and square footage?
That single-story plan that we've got is around 1370, almost 1400, and the 2-story is around 17.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for the focus in trying to move to owner-occupied. And I have a question. Is it possible, because there are some HOAs that actually limit the number of units that can be rented in an area. Is this going to have an HOA?
It does have an HOA, yep.
Okay, and do you have, I realize, have you already identified some of those guidelines?
Not exactly. It gets really sticky, so I've actually built like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 multifamily units myself. And it gets tough when you tell a person what they can do with their property from that HOA standpoint. You can say no short-term rentals, like rentals have to be at least a minimum of 30 days, because sometimes there's been, some vacation rental concerns by some of the homeowners, because you move in and then there's a guy here and then every week there's a new guy there. So you can kind of regulate the rental period, but I've not seen where you've been able to to basically say you can't rent it.
Maybe in an established, I happen to be in one, so where you can do that.
it a condo?
And so, it's a duplex, it's a townhouse.
Okay,
And so, and they actually limit the number of rentals that are allowed in the entire area, which I love that because it encourages home ownership.
Yeah.
And where we can encourage home ownership, that's very positive.
Yeah, I
So
think
I
so, too.
like the concept that you're trying to move towards of home ownership versus investments.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. That's,
So thank you for the consideration of that.
I'm on page with you there.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. You'll have the opportunity to come back at the end. So Doug, I believe you are speaking to this evening, and thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Doug Critchfield. I'm the new planner too here for Nampa, and just a brief on this project. So, as was mentioned, this is a PUD. It also has a development agreement that's attached to the property, which was included in your packet. There was a question about the HOA. There are some covenants codes or covenants, conditions, and restrictions that are in Exhibit D of that packet. It's on page 25 of the packet that will be included. So I just wanted you to note that that question did come up. This particular issue is a special circumstance in terms of this being a PUD, and that PUDs normally do allow for certain setback variations. The current zoning on this property is an RD zoning, which has a 5-foot setback requirement. This variance would allow this PUD in this instance to provide a 3-foot setback from the property line to accommodate this particular kind of construction. These lots are 3,500 square feet in size. Minimum size is 3,500 square feet. Generally, there are 85 lots that are involved. And so with this variance, this would not only allow this type of development to occur, but it would make a correction in the PUD process that really should have been in place 10 years ago. So with that, staff has looked over these documents and makes a recommendation to approve. So, if you have any
Mayor?
questions.
Yes.
Doug, welcome on board.
Thank you.
I'm over here.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully, I'm the only one besides the mayor has a voice similar to mine. Anyway, going back to the mayor's question regarding the HOA, because that was a really strong concern of mine, and code and covenants. If I recall, you just referred to page 25 where we might find something like that. Is that
Yes.
correct?
In your packet, it's page 25. It's Exhibit D of the conditions of approval of the development agreement.
Okay.
And that's item 3.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start looking. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Are there any questions for Doug from the council?
Mayor Kling. Doug, it appears that most of these lots are 35 feet wide, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in your opinion, you mentioned that you would see no problem with giving this approval with the side yard setback. They're not asking for any front or rear yard setback changes, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And can you speak to the firewall requirements as far as a 3-foot setback with overhangs within that 3-foot setback, how the firewall would be constructed and still have windows in it?
I would have to refer to, is Dan here, or do you want to address that?
He was here.
That's a building code issue. We were advised by them that was.
If you could stand and speak into the mic, that way we have it on record. Thank you, Norm.
By the building department that these would be approvable with a 3-foot setback and meet the requirements of the building code in terms of the.
The residential code?
Yes.
That normally anything less than 5 feet would not allow any openings unless they're protected openings. Is that what we're talking about, as a protected opening?
So there would be 6 foot between buildings.
Yes, but to the property line still, I mean, they can't control what's happening on the other side of their property line. That's where the concern lies. If a fire starts, a burn barrel is put on the property line, a fire can easily conduct itself, especially through a constricted corridor like that with a wind movement. That's why the code is what it is, to restrict those widths to be reduced unless there's a firewall. And the applicant said that a window would be appropriate, and I don't see that that's the case. So I'm just, I'd like to know who gave that assurance, so.
We're going to check to see if Patrick is.
Okay, you can get back to me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The applicant may have a statement on that if you want.
Same thing with soffits. I mean, if you have a soffit within a foot of the property line, a fire could easily jump into a soffit and then consume a home just going through the attic space. So again, the separation is necessary for life safety, and that's where obviously my concern lies.
Try and get an answer for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
While we're waiting, we'll just go through the next section, which is going to be very short, and that is that this is a public hearing. So feel free to be seated for just 1 second while we go through. So this is a public hearing, but actually we have no one signed up to testify on behalf of or against on this particular issue. Is there anyone present that had intended to sign up and testify on behalf in support of or not supporting this issue? Okay, so seeing none, is Patrick, can you text him?
So Patrick is not in his office. If the windows were not allowable under the building code, with the 3-foot setback, that could be handled at the time of building permit, and the windows would not be allowed, and they would have to change their design at that point. The approval of the setback would not change that requirement for them.
No. But more specifically to the soffits, then, I asked the question if the soffits are extending into that 3-foot as well, because normally the 5-foot setback is to the building frame, and a slight overhang is usually allowed, but again, it's not less than 3 feet away.
And I believe the applicant stated that that was approvable with fire protection on those.
Right, so I was wondering how that's accomplished.
That would be a
new-
issue that
it's-
the building department would address with the building
Okay,
permit.
maybe the applicant, when he comes back up, can speak to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel.
In the meantime, Daniel or Norm, would you guys reach out to Patrick, please? Thank you. Okay, so this is the opportunity for the applicant to come back up and provide response or answer any questions that have been addressed up to this point.
Chad Olson, 12790 West Telemark Street, Boise, Idaho, 83713. There is a series of things that happen on a 3-foot setback. The first thing is the overhang has got a double piece of 5/8, which creates a 1-hour firewall, which is considerably the same as a 0 lot line. The second thing is no soffit vents are allowed in the bottom of it unless they're fire rated, which means that if they get a certain temperature, they spring shut and they shut. The workaround to that is a roof vent on top of that where the Celotex shingle, the composition shingle, is in fact fire rated beyond that 1 hour. This is all falling under a code called IDAPA. And IDAPA allows 3-foot setbacks with penetrations in those 3-foot setbacks in terms of that wall being a window. I'm with you. I've built a lot of multifamily as well. I'm not so sure what the 3-foot makes a difference on each side of the building either. I can just tell you that the soffits are rated that way with the single piece of 5/8, which is 1 hour, 2 pieces of 5/8 is 2 hour, and that the soffit vents have to either be put on top as a roof vent modified or a soffit vent that's spring loaded. As far as the penetrations, that's allowable under the IDAPA code. The IDAPA code is somewhat new. Councilman Haverfield, it is somewhat new. Having said I built all those, this is the first time I've ever done an IDAPA project.
So Chad, you're Chad.
Yeah, I am. It's all good.
1 hour firewall with a non-rated window?
It is a 1 hour firewall, but just the soffits are considered rated, not the actual wall of the exterior building.
So you're not constructing that exterior wall frame with a 1 hour rating?
That is correct. Just the overhangs are that way. And so instead of a wood soffit, I mean, there's a couple things you could do. You could just cut it off and not have an overhang.
Right.
But if you wanted to have the overhang, you kind of treat it just like you do a double firewall, which is, a double piece of 5/8 on both sides, would create a 2-hour firewall.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm used to in as far as in the projects I've designed as well. This is fairly new to me, and that's why I was wondering,
Yeah.
What code are you referencing? And
It's this IDAPA, and it's not a WPA number, which is a Wall Panel Association number, and it's not a GA number, which is a Gypsum Association number. There was no number that identified that other than this IDAPA code. And I worked with Cash Olson specifically on that. He's the plan reviewer, and basically went through the whole thing with him, and then worked with another designer at the city of Nampa as well on those vents at the top. Because you could have gotten the more expensive vents, and they said, well, here's what you do, you put the roof vents, which allow the soffit to vent that way, and then there's no exposure to that 1-foot overhang. So those soffits are 1 foot on both sides.
Well, unless it's front and rear, you can pull air through there to
Yeah.
so, okay, so as long as you see where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
I'd rather not have you get to a point that you can't get an approved set of plans.
Right.
Without it being 5 feet away from the property line.
Yeah, yeah, just to get an approval here now, just to run into a stumbling block later, makes perfect sense. But I assure you that that stumbling block has been leaped.
Okay. Well, I'll look into the
Sure.
IDAPA
Yep.
myself, thanks.
Yeah, not a problem. Any other questions? Or,
Okay, thank you so much. If there are no other questions, then I would stand for a motion to close public testimony.
I-
Or do you have
Sorry, Mayor,
questions?
Council, I have a question for, perhaps Norm can answer this. What, and maybe the applicant, maybe Councilman Haverfield or someone else on the council.
Anyone out there?
Just anybody, yes, you can call in, I'm sorry. Setbacks are, I see a lot of municipalities kind of have 3 as kind of a reasonable, 3 or 5 on this. So I'm just trying to better understand the remark about what could have happened 10 years ago and how this was sort of what was phrased as perhaps an administrative, I don't know if oversight would be an appropriate word. I'm trying to grasp what occurred to bring this here again, just to, yes.
Yes, as Chad mentioned, this is an older PUD. It was
Yes.
approved as a plan unit development. And there's actually an overlay. It's an RD PUD, the zoning. And at the time of the approval, there was the agreement under the PUD, and you can see the development agreement that's attached. And it actually outlines in there, I don't know whether it doesn't outline a setback, but it outlines the lot sizes that were proposed in this instance. And it was approved with no statement as to whether there would be a variation in setback. But the inherent idea that it was a PUD would indicate that there could have been, but it wasn't stated, So it's kind of in that regard, it's a unique circumstance to that site that was approved as a PUD. And that's why we felt that it could fall under a variance under a unique site circumstance.
Well, if it was under the PUD, I don't know what legal ramifications there are. It seems like the dimensions, the specs, as you mentioned, were already approved. But what was not contemplated was how those specs reconciled with the setbacks on the side. Is that what I'm hearing? And upon
So
implementing 2 units you've done so far, applicant realizing,
Right, and when they came in for the additional ones, then we realized, well, it really wasn't approved with a defined setback variance as originally. So now's the time to fix it. That's the approach.
and hypothetically speaking, there could be 0 setbacks for, of course, there would be is there a firewall required in a duplex, the wall? And so,
Yeah, if they're built
Yes.
as attached units,
Yeah.
yes.
so the 5 foot, is that what is pretty standard across the country?
Yeah,
Uniform
you
standard?
see local jurisdictions that allow the 3-foot setbacks.
Yeah, I've
So
seen,
this isn't uncommon.
some say 3, some say 5. Okay, all right, thank you.
Before you sit down, Norm, Mayor Kling, is this for 2-story units as well, a 3-foot setback, or just the 1-story? That we're being asked to give a reduced setback allowance to?
I don't know the height on these units. Are they 2-story? Oh, 2 then. Yeah, so it
Okay.
would apply to.
Is there an issue with the 2-story, with that limited a setback?
I think as long as they build it according to the building permitting requirements, yes,
Okay,
there's no issue.
all right, thanks.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions from the council? And if there are none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
I make a motion to grant the variance as requested of the required interior yard 5-foot setback to allow a 3-foot interior yard side setback for all lots within Bella Commons subdivision, with recommended, well, the conditions per, referred to on page, yeah, recommended conditions for approval.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
The only thing I would love to see, something that's, these appear to be more like craftsman style. If you want to do something like North End Boise stuff, that'd be great.
That phase C is very contemporary with the hip roof and the last phase on, the last elevation on both of them. Very contemporary.
Mayor?
Yes.
As I was looking through the conditions of approval, kind of something that you brought up and I was concerned about as well. The only thing I specifically could find is that this was intended to be a senior housing community, but those houses that were not designed specifically for seniors have to meet their parking space requirements. And I too would have liked to have seen, and I don't know how you can do that, but something either through the developer or through the HOA conditions of approval that would set a limit of minimum structures that are rented, because it is a proven fact that those that are owned, there's a little bit more pride, they're maintained better, and the development holds its value.
I agree with that, and we've talked about it a little bit.
So, Madam Mayor, I guess I'm just a little naive on that. So can that be a condition of approval? I thought that was stated that it was, and I'm also not seeing that in there.
I've combed through this, and unless someone else sees something that I don't.
I'm not seeing it.
I don't see that. My motion isn't to dictate to the HOA or even suggest
Right.
some sort of, be a governing body as city council over HOA homeowners on what percentage of their homes and how they would enforce that, regulate that. I'm sensitive to the concern. I know Boise, I think, is having a discussion about vacation rental percentage and trying to contemplate some of that. But I see both sides of the equation. I think there's going to be some rentals. They also don't get a homeowner's exemption if there's a rental, so we get our full taxes on those. But not that I'm a fan of everything being rented, but it kind of goes both ways. The homeowners probably take more pride, take care of their property. That's sort of maybe anecdotal sentiment that we have, but at the same time, responsible renters in some communities, that we get the full tax value on that home without the homeowner's exemption. So I'm okay with the HOA dictating whatever they want as their own jurisdiction of homeowners. So maybe this conversation could be had another time if we want to contemplate what we want to discuss about vacation rentals and stuff like that, maybe.
And Councilman Holm, I'm not advocating that. I'm just mainly a question if that is allowed in a development agreement. So,
Mayor, and just Councilman Hoagboom, I'm not advocating that we micromanage or dictate how the developer specifically uses their property, but because this is going to be setting a precedence and we're going to be faced with these in the future, we need to be giving that thought, because it's one thing that we get taxes off of the property, but if the property is not really maintaining its value or becomes an eyesore or a crime area, then we have other issues to deal with. That was just my concern.
Oh, yeah.
Mayor Kling, what's of interest to me is that there isn't any adjoining property owners here in opposition to this, because when you look at these lots, the subdivision to the north, each one of their lots are about, it's 2-to-1, the width of these lots, but the fact that this was already approved, that's probably why they're not here tonight, because they anticipated this was coming. So that's what caught me off guard. I was looking at this overview, or the aerial view, and I thought, wow, that's, normally we get quite a bit of opposition, so I would, did you make a motion
There has
already?
been a
Yeah.
motion
Okay.
and a second.
Councilman
Yeah.
Rodriguez, if my memory is.
there's a second on the
Okay.
floor.
We're just in the discussion
Yeah,
phase
okay.
for the vote.
And what, it would be nice if, there are some that are gonna be rear-loaded, so they're not just, we're gonna be looking at garage doors as they drive up and down some of these streets, so I'd encourage more of the rear-load stuff, if you can get that in there.
Perfect.
The city really doesn't, and maybe our attorney has an opportunity to speak to this too. we really can't stipulate what's rented and what's owned.
Right.
That would be a fair housing kind of issue that you could be litigated over. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
And Mayor, but my question was, because it was stated that it was in the agreement, that's why,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
Why I question that. Go ahead, sorry.
And Madam Mayor, Councilman Bruner and members of the council, I would echo that and emphasize, I guess, as well, that some of the things that were brought up are the type of item that could be touched upon in a development agreement. There is a development agreement here, but that's not what's before you tonight. The question is limited to that variance, so.
Understand.
So that said, that is something that in the future in our development agreements, we could actually look at. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, potentially, there were a lot of topics thrown out there. Some certainly would be appropriate to look at there.
So that might be something that as we look at future plan developments of this nature, that we actually look at the development agreement and give consideration. And then for council, that's a discussion that we should have as we move forward. Because I do agree with Councilman Levi's comment that the home ownership maintains its value. And I think it's a positive thing for a community. So that's something that maybe we can take up at another time. And then also, if you have any developments come through, before you move forward with those development agreements, let's have the discussion for the future. So, okay, any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second, and it's time for roll call.
Bruner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hoagland.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your development. We appreciate it. Okay, our next public hearing is item number 8.2 on the agenda. This is a modification of an annexation and zoning-related development agreement, which is ordinance 3335, instrument 200423257, between Lava Springs LLC and the city of Nampa by amending the recital section and certain commitments and conditions thereof, also annulling and rescinding as exhibits B and C, then substituting a new master plan in the stead of Exhibit B. This is pertaining to parcel number R29454 at 3905 Southside Boulevard, which is a 6.85 acre property in an RS6 PUD zoning district at the southwest corner of the intersection of East Locust Lane and Southside Boulevard, for Matt Schultz, representing Quattro Properties Nampa. Is the applicant here? Hello. I think you know the ropes, but go ahead and give us your name and address.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, Matt Schultz, 8421 South 10 Mile Meridian, here on behalf of Quattro Properties Nampa. If I can put on a little bit more color, not colorful, but there's an exhibit of the site plan as it exists almost today. The only thing that we haven't built yet, break out my handy dandy laser pointer, is right here in the south. We have an approved final plat, but we just haven't built it yet, but it's gonna get built this year. So everything else you see there, actually the lots are done. The school's in. It's been about 5 years I've been working, helping them through acquiring it. They acquired it kind of, wasn't even half finished. It was about, 20% finished by a previous developer who got the approvals and started construction back in, the approvals were from 2004. And so we're talking about a 14, almost 15-year-old development agreement that has an old site plan attached to it. Old in that when my owner bought it back in 11, he sold to Legacy Charter School this section right here. It used to be 31 of these kind of lots here. They were actually in the ground, pipe was in the ground, they weren't finished yet, but the school came in, bought it, took all the infrastructure out and said, we'll buy it. And so moving ahead through this, we kind of cleaned that up, and we've just kind of marched down south and tightened up some of these lots, made them more efficient, because there was 31 lots to kind of play with because we'd done that. So this is all done, ample open space, 2 connections to the city pathway. Along the road embankment, we're really pleased at how it's turned out, how market values have really jumped out there. Did a pool in the club, just a pool right there, no clubhouse, but so essentially where we stand is we've got this corner that was originally approved back in 04 with commercial, a couple commercial buildings. It was part of the PUD. This is an RS6 PUD. we'd rather just kind of finish it up and do some residential on it. Just instead of waiting forever and ever and ever and ever, who knows how long, for a demand out there in that area for some commercial. So essentially, if you look at what we're trying to do, we're taking those 31 that were here, we're putting 29 there of the same lots. It's kind of a good little swap. We actually have more open space than we had with the school, which during school hours you can't use it, but after hours it's a great extra space. Even without that, we were meeting the PUD requirements for ample open space. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. Now, your P&Z Commission did approve our revised preliminary plat, and they did approve our PUD amendment, if you will, to accomplish exactly what we're asking for. So what we have is a housekeeping item of an old development agreement with an old site plan that needs to get updated for a new site plan, as well as eliminate any references to this commercial site. And everything else will be the same. What's interesting is these were originally conceived by our previous developer as some attached product, some duplex and triplex, and we didn't know what to do with it at the time when we took it back. We're like, we'll just kind of work on that later, so we marched to this. We came back into this area and actually lost 5 lots. We made them wider, we vacated some easements, they're all detached, 2-car between the builder that's going in here right now. It's pretty amazing, but he's gonna do 1,400 to 1,900 square foot single stories between 240 and 280 in that area, which is a really, really good price. And then these homes in here in the 300s. So it's turned into touching the 400s almost. So it's pretty impressive how much the market's rebounded in the last 5-6 years. So we're looking forward to just finishing it up this year with that, and that'll be that Lava Springs project. So hopefully we could just kind of move on and just do this housekeeping item with the amended development agreement, and I'll stand for any questions. Thanks.
And seeing no questions at this time, Matt, you will have the opportunity to come back in just a few minutes.
Thanks.
So staff report.
Matt pretty well gave all of the details to you regarding this. The subdivision is called Lava Peak, that had the preliminary plat approved by the commission. And again, as was mentioned, this is just kind of a repurposing and a conversion of what was originally stated as a commercial area to now a residential, a single-family residential area up in that northeast corner, as was indicated. And it's about a 6.85 acre area. And there have been no citizens have responded that live out there as to stating they feel that this wouldn't be compatible to the neighborhood. It's a continuation, basically, of what's already there. And you have in the staff report actually a draft of the development agreement that has been prepared to be attached to this, already in place. Should you vote to modify it, the modification ordinance has already been prepared for that and would be submitted with your approval and returned for your actual modification approval this evening.
Any questions for Norm?
Mayor? Norm, do you know, is this the area that would be serviced by the fire department that's on Greenhurst?
I do not know that answer. It is in the city.
It's
so
not,
I assume that it would be, yes.
not out where Station 6 should be, correct? If I'm
Correct.
getting that correctly?
That
Okay.
is correct. This is on the east side, and so probably the closest would be Fire Station 2 and then Fire Station 5 off of Happy Valley would be the next closest station.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and actually, the only person that we have signed up in support of was Matt Schultz. We have no one signed up in opposition to. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify this evening on behalf of or against this? Hubert Osborne.
Mayor Kling, as Hubert's
Yes.
making his way up, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I work with Matt on an award-winning pool house in this, no, it didn't win an award, but the pool structure that's central to the main entry. So, but I have no involvement in this project, so.
Congratulations.
But you get free swimming there, is that what we're hearing?
Anytime I can go fall in the pool.
So Hubert, thank you, as you know, to state your name and address, and then which side or where your testimony is coming in support of or not.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Councilman and Mayor. My name is Hubert Osborne. I reside at 4199 East Switzer Way. This is kind of my section of town, and I just have some comments. There's 2 strip mall developments at Southside and Greenhurst, which are not fully developed. So I think this is a good move to put housing in this vacant land. It's, like he said, it's been 14 years in the development. Also, I would like to put a bug in the comprehensive plan people for that intersection at Locust and South Side. There's 375 houses going in to the east on Locust, and I see at the next council meeting there's a 400-unit development going in off of Alma Lane, which is going to impact this intersection. So I'd like to see that put on the comprehensive plan for improvement, both as to speed at the intersection and hopefully a roundabout. That's my favorite, but something. Thank you.
Hubert, thank you for your comments. Agreed.
Actually, Hubert, what is the speed limit out there?
What is what?
What is the speed limit out there? Is it,
Well, I think it's 45 right at that intersection.
is it, that's what
There's a school on Ronald Reagan's right there that you have to slow down, and there's a school down about half a mile. But I think between the 2 schools, it's 45.
wow. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is the opportunity for the applicant to come back and have any closing comments.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Matt Schultz again. Just real quick, before I respond to Mr. Osborne's comments. I noticed in the action items, it says between Lava Springs LLC, which might have been the previous developer, my current owner of this particular piece is Quattro Properties Nampa, Inc. Just want to make sure that that gets reflected in the record. And then appreciate Mr. Osborne giving us a second on the fact this isn't a good strip mall location. That's what we came up with as well. Not that that would have been that, but it's just not a real heavy draw for any kind of commercial out there. Just so everybody understands, we're doing a big widening on both of those roads and restriping, because I was here earlier when you were talking about how the city takes care of all its roads, and as opposed to Ada County. And over there, we don't widen the roads up front. We wait for ACHC to come back 10 years later and shut down everything and widen them out. Whereas here, we develop them right up front, all the way to the full width. And so that's what we're doing. We're doing the full width to the ultimate right-of-way at Locust and South Side. There could be room to put a roundabout still in there, at least on ours, come through the open area, or whatever that ends up being like later. But we do fully widen these roads, curb gutter sidewalk, and everything out to the full right-of-way. So other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So are there any additional questions for the applicant or for staff before we close public hearing? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move we close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, council discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of annexation and zoning related to the development agreement between, and for the records, I think Mayor, Quattro Properties and the city of Nampa by amending the recital section of certain commitments and conditions thereof.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Bruner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hogaboom.
Yes.
Thanks.
So we have one last public hearing this evening, and this is the fee increase for Parks, Recreation, and the Rec Center, Golf and Cemetery. And Darren. The information in our packet is actually related to item 6, whatever, in your packet, I believe.
13, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll see in your packet is a list of proposed fees. The proposed fee schedule, it has our current fees, the proposed fee, and then it has a percentage of increase if it is proposed. As you'll see, we have about 800 fees presented, but not all fees are suggested for an increase. If the fees are 5% and over, it is state statute that we have to have a public hearing. However, we recognize that some of these fees are below 5%, but we just include them all into this particular setting. The proposed fees are set by an analysis by our staff, our management staff. They are all here tonight. Parks, Rec Center, Recreation, and the golf courses are represented, along with the Recreation Department. And so what they do is the managers consider the expenses for the program or the operation, and then they propose fees to cover those costs or to meet some of the costs. It's certainly, as a Parks and Recreation entity, our first goal is to be extremely affordable so our community can participate and enjoy the quality of life in Nampa, but we also have a responsibility to cover some costs. For example, the rec center and the golf courses are only dependent on the funds that we bring in from charging fees. I think perhaps maybe the best way to move forward is to say we've given you the information in your packet. If you have any questions about a particular fee, maybe that you could bring that to our attention and we'll try to address it. Either I will or we'll have some of our staff do that. Otherwise, we're just here for questions.
Madam Mayor, if I may, and this has been, the fees are as far as looked at on an annual basis, at least since I've been part of this council. That's gonna continue. We look at these on an annual basis, correct?
We do.
So my question, Mayor, is, I realize we're gonna be putting a proposal as far as lease agreement for the golf courses. So that our lease agreement is not up until the end of this 2019?
That is correct.
December, correct? So we would have opportunity, once we know what that agreement's going to be, we talked about having it done before this budget year, but we would be able to, as far as if need to, as far as hopefully not, but raise fees, especially for the golf courses, we'd have opportunity to do that at another time, is that correct?
If we had to in order to
what I mean.
fulfill the lease.
Yeah, I think that we were trying to, I guess just to back up on the golf fees, we recommended these fees. We certainly did an analysis on the golf fees. This is for illustration purposes only, because I know that it'll be hard to see, but it lists our particular golf courses, and then we analyze all the other golf courses. If you look at Centennial, I don't think there's a course listed less than what we charge for Centennial. We have extremely competitive fees. It does seem to be that there is pressure to keep on maintaining the grounds there, the greens. I will say that even this last year, temp staff and part-time staff are difficult to get, especially at what we were trying to pay them. And so there will be an increase in operations this year.
Yeah.
There already was last year. And so we don't believe that we have a big increase, but it will help pay for the golf courses, and it's just our recommendation. Again, golf was approved by the Golf Commission Board, these fees, they were looked at it, and it's simply our recommendation, but you have the final call on how we move forward.
Mayor? Yes. I have some questions, please. Darren, this last week, I was asked by a couple community members that have charter memberships. They were curious as to, they have charter memberships, so why does the cost of their membership continue to rise? Was it stated or understood that theirs would raise throughout the years, or?
If you go back 25 years, we've made increases every so often to charter passes. I think the obligation is they would never necessarily raise more than the other type of passes. What would be very difficult, and as we're planning for our 25th anniversary, Courtney has had the task of counting original charter members, and I can't remember, it was like 610 that we still have. Is that about right? Or 681, yeah. So when you look at that, I just don't know how you would be able to, people aren't paid the same, our supplies and our expenses aren't the same as they were 25 years ago. So I just don't know if you could sustain keeping them at a rate that they were charged 25 years forever.
Okay. And then on your lifetime memberships, does that make up a very large portion of the members?
I would have to have Courtney talk a little bit about that.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We actually have 43 lifetime members. And those do include families, so I use lifetime memberships.
Okay. And I'll continue, and then you can tag or whatever you need to do. On the facility rental, does that generate much revenue?
Yes, part of the facility rental does. We have the lease with St. Al's. We have a contract with the pool, with the community swim team. And then we do other facility rentals. A big portion of that used to be the overnight rentals we would do for graduation parties, but we've kind of, last year we had 0 because we have a lot of competition with Big Owls, Wahoos, those multi-gaming things, so, and we don't have any on the books. But we do rent out the senior center, we do rent out the classroom, and the youth activity center for birthday parties, baby showers, things like that.
So you, nice segue on the senior center. Is that rented out very often?
Mayor, City Council, and Levi, we try to keep it to weekends, and we try to keep it to more family-based things such as 90th birthdays, 50th wedding anniversaries. We've done a couple of family reunions. The people that attend the senior center are the ones that typically reach out to us for rentals because they know the facility and they like it and they feel comfortable there, so.
Thank you. My last question is the classes or the workshops that people offer there. Is there a base rate where they have to start at charging and then it goes up from there and their profit margin or whatever? How is that figured?
So if the class or if a program is offered by an external or a contractor, that is a contract that we set up with a percentage base. Typically, it's a 70-30. The contractor gets 70%. The facility gets 30% to cover our admin costs as far as advertising, facility, things like that. Occasionally, it'll go down 20-80, but typically, I would say our contracts are 70-30.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, Council, I have a question. Darren, I have a question about the eliminate fee line items that were proposed. Can you explain the rationale behind the elimination of fees? Most notably, notice college student passes, Ridgecrest.
Oh,
Maybe
on
stop.
the college at Ridgecrest, oh, yeah. So there was, it's my understanding, and Scott and John can help me out, but it's my understanding that there were only 1 or 2 of sales in that particular category. So because it's not widely used, we thought we'd get rid of that. However, how we would do it, if the person that's coming back that is still in college, we'd let them finish out college if that one person and pay that rate, but.
Okay, that's good.
But expire it, just because it's not, what?
Okay,
widely
gotcha.
used.
I was just making sure that the eliminate fee, you're eliminating more the line item and that rate for that particular customer classification. Okay, so in other words, it's not free now for everyone who's.
No, they
Okay.
would just pay the regular fee.
Gotcha, okay. I was gonna say, you'd have Yeah, I'll go back to CWI so I could golf, just do a class or something. Always looking to, find an advantage. Okay, those were the eliminate fee line items, so you're just eliminating those line items. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Are there any other questions?
I do have some.
Okay.
Darren, I think we talked about this earlier, but I want to confirm this. When I talked to Scott and and John Lewis, they indicated that they had some programs that would enhance our golf courses, that would allow them to market, to bring more business. So is this money for the increases, are those going to be used for that? So, or are we going to use it for maintenance, or can you say?
Yeah. Right now, what I would say is there's a big need for maintenance items, especially maintenance items that have been deferred. And so any excess revenue I would see is that it's going to be used to be more competitive with seasonal staff. The groundskeeping staff ran with not a full crew all year. They just weren't available. And part of that is because of the pay rate that we were offering. And then another example is today, just on the steep slope out at Centennial, they're putting in a new barricade. And so those are the kind of expenses that we're doing out at the golf courses that these fees will cover.
Okay, so, but this year, both Centennial and Ridgecrest had a positive year for revenue.
That's not correct.
No?
No. Ridgecrest had a positive year. Centennial I should have brought my worksheet. Ridgecrest had a positive year by about 175,000. Centennial had a negative of about 13,000.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Overall, the golf courses, and that's why we know that they're not the same type of golf courses, and it's not our interest to pit one golf course against the other or have some kind of competition, because we know that they both serve a different need. But it is something that we look at, and Centennial certainly has a lot more pass holders, and it's at a cheaper rate.
Okay. Now also, on the senior fees that you have here, some are increased $2-3. Is this going to be an increase for the seniors regarding the senior center lunches?
No.
That's a different deal?
Yes, yeah. They pay, we don't collect, the senior center board collects those fees. So, yeah, those have nothing to do with lunches or their ability to use the center.
Oh.
These are special outside rentals that would come in, but it's not the daily
Oh, I see.
senior
Okay.
center.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling. I'm not sure how to ask this, but the need for enhanced barriers out at the golf course, is that because of the mayor's golf tournament and Victor's behavior?
Partially.
Okay. I just want to have it out there on the record.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
Councilman, what kind of barriers are we talking about?
He's speaking about enhanced barriers as far as on the downslope, so.
I think the
assume
mayor
it's-
needs a new set of golf clubs, though.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, so for now, this is a public hearing, and this is the opportunity for someone to testify. We don't have anyone signed up in support of or to oppose the recommended fee increases. Is there anyone here that had intended to speak that did not get signed up? Okay. So seeing none, I would like to say, as I've looked through the suggested fee increase, first of all, I appreciate the work that you guys do. I know that you're mindful of keeping the work that you do affordable. And yet, at the same time, you have to increase incrementally at times in order for it to be self-sustaining. And I just want to commend you for your work. I think you've done a good job. There are increases where I am perceiving it's the work that you've done to see where there needs to be an increase, but there isn't an increase overall. And I just appreciate that because the service that you provide is to the citizens of our community. And so I think you've done a good job, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the work you do. We have an amazing team, right? Courtney and Jennifer and John and, I just messed up, Scott. Thank you. You know, when you start saying names, who else am I missing that's here besides Darren? Oh, yes, you guys back there.
Odie.
Thank you. You know what? Thank you for your work. Thank you for your service to our community. You do a great job. You have a great team, Darren, and thank you. I appreciate the effort here. So that said, this is a public hearing, and unless there's any further questions and there's no one here to testify, I would stand for a motion to close public testimony.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so council discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'd make the motion to accept the proposed rates as stated.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a note that there are scholarships available if there's financial hardships. Is that correct, Darren? And I know that not all members of the city know that, and I should have maybe mentioned it when you're up here during public hearing, but as we second and they see we have fee increases, I know that you take very seriously accessibility to financially challenged members of the community, and you have a good vetting system in place to see if they're actually making use of it and trying to prioritize those resources. So that's just an FYI to the community, because not everyone's aware of that. So they should just contact you, Darren, contact Parks and Rec.
We do have some children scholarships for programs. We do have a scholarship program for the Recreation Center. And then we also have a program for youth at the golf courses. And so there are many other opportunities if somebody is financially unable to participate, that we do our best to try to work something out.
Great, thanks. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, I put the
Good.
plug in for that after the second on the motion, but
No,
I
that's
just
okay.
want to make
It's
sure there's a
discussion
plug in
time.
for it. Yep. All
So
right.
you can do that. Any further discussion? Okay, we actually are going to have 2 votes, but let's just go ahead and finish this, and then we're going to move to 6:13. So we'll take roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Let's move to 6:13 on the agenda, and this is actually the resolution for the fee increases for Parks and Rec and Recreation Center, and it's a separate vote that just needed to be done after we approve the other. So is there a motion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Excuse me. I move that we accept the resolution for the fee increase for the Parks, Recreation Center, Golf, and Cemetery.
Second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Bruner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
So we have 4 other action items on the agenda, and they're all related to resolutions which are implementing some increases in water, irrigation hookup fees, irrigation rates. So the first one, and I'm not sure if we need Tom to speak to these, but I'll let you guys make that decision depending on what you've read. The first one is a resolution implementing the increase of a 3.88% for 2019 irrigation rates, and that's effective March 1, 2019, and a direct pass-through of underlying irrigation district rates as recommended by the Board of Appraisers on December 13, 2018.
Mayor, excuse me. I noticed we have another scout in our audience. Should we take a second and just bring him before the council so we can go, or should he stay?
That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so sorry, because I was maybe making an assumption that you were with the group earlier, but you're different.
Madam
Go
Mayor,
ahead and come forward.
is this for a merit badge?
Oh,
All right.
cool.
Yeah, they have to need to attend this type of thing for a merit badge, so.
Well,
Well-
why don't you come forward and give us your name, tell us what you're working on, and then if you have any pins left in the back, we'll get a pin for you. So you can come up and stand at the podium, give us your name, tell us what school you go to and what you're working on.
My name is Blake Hansen. I'm working on the citizenship in the community merit badge, and I go to the East Valley Middle School.
Good for you. Have you learned anything tonight?
Yeah.
What would that be? What do you think? I'm just curious what someone of your age that's sitting out there listening to this, is it boring or is it like,
Well, some parts it's just like I don't know what they're talking about, but like
We don't
I didn't really know like with the 3 to 5 feet at the
setback?
yeah. But that was cool to learn about.
Well, thank you for listening. Yeah, you realize there's a lot that you have to learn and know, right? Yeah, it doesn't all make sense, but that's okay. Well, it's good to have you here, and thank you for sitting in. We appreciate it.
So where are you now in Scouts? You're not life yet, right?
No.
Okay. So you've been at it for how long?
Since I was 8.
So Cubs, you started with Cubs, then 10 and a half you moved to Boy Scout. And your ambition? What do you want to become, where do you want to gain? What do you want to gain when you're out there? Want to be an Eagle?
Yeah.
Okay. His mom, is he on his way? Okay. All right. No, I just proud of you. I have a son, he's 32 now, but he got his Eagle Scout. I know it's a ton of work, so very, very proud of what you keep at it. Okay?
Thank you.
And when you grow up, you want to be a police officer, not a fireman, right? Right, Chief?
Oh, so not fair.
I know. Well, thank you, Blake. Thank you for being here, and then thank your mother for us as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming up. Victor, thank you for catching that.
Oh,
I
you are- yeah, it's my-
appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so back to our action item 6.9. And Tom, why don't you go ahead and come forward? And you actually can just stand here and give us a little bit of the update as the Board of Appraisers has worked on this, the discussion. The information is in our packet, but increases are not taken lightly, put it that way. Serious consideration into them.
Yes, Mayor, Council, thank you. Yeah, we did put a lot of thought in this. We know it's a big decision on any rate increase. You know, what we're attempting to do is do incremental rate increases so we don't get too far behind in what it takes to maintain the system. That's what this first one is about, is specifically on irrigation rates. And so we're looking at rate increases to maintain the system and cover operating costs for the infrastructure we have out there today. And so I have Jake here and Nate and Daniel. They can help out with it. They've done a lot of work on some analysis on running numbers. So history, our rates have been set on cost of service studies. We did one in 2015, a cost of service study for irrigation that kind of laid the path on the number of rate increases over time to get to where we need to be. And actually, in this fiscal year, the cost of service was calling out near a 5% increase. And also, we're seeing but Jake, you know, instead of hiring a cost of service study every year or every couple of years, he's been doing internal cost of service studies for us. And so he runs the numbers and the analysis and says, well, you know, that was a good number in 2015, but what we know today with the cost of construction, what we know with additional work that we're finding out in the field, it's this. So that's why we're here today. And he came up with several different options for the Board of Appraisers to look at. And one of them was the do nothing, you know, no rate increase. Another one would be take an incremental increase called the Engineers News Record rate increase. That's meant to help us keep in line with construction costs that are in the region and across the nation. Another one would be to adopt 4.95% this year and a 4.95% the year after, because the irrigation rates are probably the ones that we're most concerned about keeping up with. And it's because we have a lot of aging infrastructure in the ground. We have our pressurized irrigation, which we fund with this, but we also fund culverts. So culverts that are across our roadways are split between irrigation and street funds. And as every year, we're seeing more and more of them come on. There's a lot of 50-year-old pipes out there. So the example of Canyon Highway District pipe over on Midland that failed, if we don't keep up with those types of improvements, that you can see what happens. We also had a pipe on Midway over by Isaiah and Flamingo that was added in the program this year that we built, and that was, again, we were using irrigation funds to help fund that pipe, so we're trying to keep up with it. Jake came up with if we could take a 10% increase this year and then get us back up where it needed to be, and then tail it back down in the following years at like a 3% smaller. But in order to kind of level this out and keep it incremental, the Board of Appraisers recommended doing the Engineer News Record plus a 1%. So it ended up, the recommendation was it 3.88% increase for this year. And the reason we're here right now to ask for this is because per Idaho code, we have to, if the council was going to do a rate increase on irrigation, we have to make that decision by the middle of February. That's so it coincides with the water year coming up. We'll be back later on to talk about other increases on the domestic. This is just irrigation.
Any questions?
Madam Mayor, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So Jake has, what his analysis has come up, what I'm hearing is we need more than what we're going to be asking for here.
Yeah,
So how are we paying for the balance? If we have these emergencies and so on, what's the plan?
Well, we have some fund balance. Let me put this up here. This is Jake's chart here. So, and it's very hard to see. I apologize about that. But this is all the fiscal years out to fiscal year 29, and then so using these 2.8% rate increases, our balance is going to go down below what we'd want for our fund balance here about fiscal year 23, 22. So, an emergency happens somewhere in this area, we still have some fund balance to work with, but we'll be back again with another analysis next year with some new numbers, and then ask, okay, would you like to fund it to this amount to get us whole? So.
Now, if I see the notes underneath there, that's based on the ENR of 2.88. I think that's an 88, I'm not sure. But, so in this recommendation's that plus 1%.
That's correct.
Right, so it would be.
A little better than that.
It'd be a little bit
Yep.
better than that. I have to say, I did speak up in this meeting, in the Board of Appraisers meeting, and my concern is we've got incredible increases coming to our citizens. And when you look at the number between now and 2026, there's such a fine line. We have to fund our infrastructure, but at the same time, we've got major increases for those on fixed incomes. And so that's where and we've got a couple of other Board of Appraisers here. I don't know if you'd like to hear from them. Basically, the philosophy got applied to each one of these coming. Would that be a correct statement? I just want to be careful representing the Board of Appraisers, that we have kind of applied the same principle, and that is the concern over the overall rate increases, yet also wanting to ensure we're not being negligent in our future funding. So on this one, we did go 1% higher than the ENR, but it is being mindful of what we're asking of our citizens. So, right now.
I'd just like to add that Jake also helped run the numbers on what this means in dollars. So this 3.18% would be a $5 increase annual per year. So it would go from, for a typical household, it would be $119 to $124 for annual rate.
Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue, please.
Well, no, it's kind of a strange question, to tell you the truth, Madam Mayor. So, on our irrigation, I mean, people, we just use and use and use. some people in limited amounts of irrigation water. For the filtering systems, I'm trying to, I don't know how it all works, to tell you the truth. But I would think the more use you get of anything, it's gonna wear out sooner. So I don't like to regulate, but I mean, we have some individuals in this city that are watering on rainy days. They set it and just let it go. So, I mean, does that have any effect on, as far as, replacing and on filters and systems and so on that, that would have to be a marketing. I don't want to just police how much. It'd have to be, educational. But, I mean, does that make any difference?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, it will a little, sir. And conservation is important. Actually, this was brought up in our Bureau Board of Appraiser meeting, the conservation, and I agree that that's something that we should look at. So you did authorize us to hire a public involvement person, so we're actively looking for that person right now, and I think this would be a great message for them on what that means. If you're overwatering, what it does to the system, to the rates, overall water usage.
Yeah. And even, I'm just off the wall, but even the Zamzals or something that people hear, a lot, even if they get involved in there and let people know, I think, they know you don't want to overwater, but we're just not getting the message out, doesn't seem to. It seems like that we just, hey, this is my one monthly rate and I'll use it as much as I want. So, okay.
Good suggestion.
Councilman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. Please refresh my memory, Tom, is this amount that when we're raising the rates, is that collected specifically for emergencies or routine maintenance? I don't recall.
Mayor, Council Levi, this is for routine maintenance.
Routine maintenance, okay. And of the amount that we have collected, if I'm reading correctly, $3,800,000 some dollars and cents, we've collected that, and how much has actually been used?
Well, Mayor, Council Levi, this is our fund balance, so maybe, Jake, do you want to help me read these numbers?
Young eyes.
I think you can make it,
Yeah, we'd appreciate it, thank
can
you.
make
Well, we could increase the,
you can make it bigger.
Okay.
let's make it bigger on there, and that'll help. You can scoot the paper over and increase the size.
So Mayor and Council, just to keep up with the master plan and to keep up with routine maintenance, we are dipping into fund balance on an annual basis at this point. That is why the fund balance goes negative eventually, because we are dipping into fund balance every year.
So we are currently dipping into our fund balance, okay. And I appreciate your bringing the $5 annual increase to about 124, because a lot of the people, when they talk to me, they want the bottom line number. How much is that going to affect them? The charts don't really mean a whole lot to them. And then as I'm reading the request, it talks about a direct pass-through of underlying irrigation district rates. Please explain what the direct pass-through means.
So, Mayor, Councilor Levi, all the water in Nampa is maintained by irrigation districts. We have Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, and then we also have Pioneer Irrigation District. So part of the fee that we're collecting from the users in Nampa goes back to the irrigation districts, and that's what the pass-through is. Not all of it, there is a portion of it that does.
Okay, thank you. I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Mayor Kling. Tom, the ENR index, is that national averages?
Yes, Councilor.
So does it have, local factors like ours? Does it take into consideration the growth that we are seeing here? We're getting more people to pay for the services as we're seeing growth. How does that factor into these rate increases?
I did a little looking online, and I didn't see a big difference between the national one and the regional index. So and then I also dug more into it, and it said that in general practice, it would be good to use a national one because it's less, it's more smooth, I suppose.
Well, it's a validation for sure. I just didn't know in areas of explosive growth like we're seeing here in the valley, if it takes that into consideration with a regional factor or not.
We just took the national number and didn't see a lot of difference, but that's certainly something that we could bring to the Board of Appraisers and discuss. Yeah.
Well, we've already got their recommendation, so are you talking about
Future.
future? Okay. Yeah, I wish you would, because obviously we use regional factors with national averages as well in the construction industry. It's just important that you do that, because it factors in a lot of other things that need to be factored in or might be forgotten if that's not been taken into consideration, like with this ENR index.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For that.
Mayor, Tom, or?
No, I'm done with mine.
Are the rates adjusted based on lot size?
Yeah, Mayor Council Hagerboom, it's based on the amount of green space, and then we cap, the GIS system has all of the lots, the total area, and then we capture the green space, and then us also give a reduction for the paved over areas, impermeable areas, so yeah, it is. Long answer, but yes.
And are there members of the community who opt out because I don't know if our building codes require some minimum lawn requirements. I don't know if there are some who have gone to a different form of landscaping and say we're not using irrigation, period, if there's any mechanism for members of the community to opt out.
Mayor, Council, so there is a process that if somebody wants to opt out, as you call it, they can request that of the Board of Appraisers. The Board of Appraisers has a list of, I didn't bring it with me today, but a list of criteria that has to be met in order to opt out.
So it's hypothetically possible.
Hypothetically, but that doesn't happen real often. And
Okay.
a lot of it is because the underlining irrigation district, and you'd have to be in a spot where the elevation is such that it's impossible to get water to them at all. And there's just not that many in town.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor? Tom, I'm just sitting here thinking about this, a question I asked earlier, and that this is for routine maintenance, the money that's collected. So if we're having to dip into fund balance, should we maybe slow our maintenance down?
Mayor, Councilor Levi, well, it's a level of service question, you know, if we wanted to not do as much. I think in this case, I would recommend, it becomes a public safety issue if we do not continue to try to fund some of these. It's because, like I was saying earlier, it's not just irrigation pipes in the grounds and pumps. We're also funding pipes that we are deteriorated, and we're finding deteriorated pipes under our roads. And we don't want to be in a situation where we have a collapsed pipe because we didn't adequately fund something.
Well, as was stated earlier, I'm just concerned with all of the increases that we are throwing at our citizens right now. And I understand a lot of them are necessities, but just looking and exploring any possibility where we can maybe cut back without risking public safety is something worth looking into.
Sure, yeah, we're sensitive to that.
It is something I'd like to do this next year, is actually look at our level of service. And I think we have a really good plan in place, but across the board, looking at how we can manage costs. The costs, if there's some way that we can manage our costs in such a way that we're maintaining our level of service, but it not costing us so much to do so. And I don't know what the answer to that is. It's going to take somewhat of a serious-eyed look to even do that. But that's, I think, from a citizen standpoint, my commitment to our citizens to ensure that we're being good stewards of those dollars. It is difficult when you have continual increases coming, and because of our wastewater, that's where our biggest hit is. But, and that's why this year, I guess I felt like this one year we need to pause it a little bit, do what we've recommended as the Board of Appraisers. And then I think that the thing that we discussed is that we will come back and readdress this next year. And so we need to come back next year and look and see where we are. Is there any way that we can save money yet still maintain? Because we cannot get behind. Fiscal stewardship is not that we don't do what we need to do, because all that does is kick the can down the road. So looking at that line, it's being very mindful of that. It's a difficult place. It's not an easy place. Are there any further questions on this one?
I have several, Mayor. Tom, I usually support the Board of Appraisers on their decisions. This one, however, I am having a difficult time with, because we've had so many increases in the last 4 years, that's actually 5 years. So now we're, according to Jake, we're dipping into the fund balance. So where have we gone wrong?
Mayor, Council, Rodriguez, actually, we have been dipping into fund balance for a number of years. We had a fund balance, back here in 2017, 18, and we were, we weren't getting all the projects out. Now we started to get the projects out, and we're instead of just letting it go down to zero all at once, we're kind of slowly declining it to a point where we feel comfortable having a fund balance. So we're not taking the fund balance all the way down to zero. We're just stopping it at what the cost of a replacement would be for a pump station, for example. So if we did have that emergency, one pump went out, we would stop that fund balance right there. So in irrigation, I think he's got, right around $1 million for a pump station. So we've been purposely trying to spend the fund balance down, not all at once, but just kind of slowly down to a point where we just have enough to cover emergency.
One thing I've always wanted to know is over the last increases, the amount of money, the revenue that's come in, and then the amount of that revenue that we've had to take care of in terms of maintenance or staying ahead. I don't know those numbers, do you?
Jake, do you know those numbers? There you are.
Right behind you.
As far as the increase numbers, I can't tell you that off the top of my head. You'll see the top numbers are revenues every year. The FY18 numbers are budget numbers at this point. The final number for 2018 was actually 3.8 million. And of that, we can, we've spent well over 4. So.
I see, okay. Thank you.
You have more questions?
No, I'm good.
Any additional questions? Okay, so what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll be the bad guy. I make the motion that we adopt the resolution as the Board of Appraisals have suggested at 3.88% for this year.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Was that Haverfield?
Yes. Second is Haverfield. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
I'm going to say yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move right into the next one. It's very similar to what we've just talked about. This is a resolution implementing an increase of 2.88% for the 2019 domestic and irrigation water miscellaneous fees. This would be effective March 1, 2019, and this is as recommended by the Board of Appraisers on December 13th.
I'll also move on that one.
Second with a question. What would be the average rate increase then per home per year?
So Mayor, Council, Haverfield, so if you go to page, the attachment, Exhibit A, it'll tell you what specifically these are. These are miscellaneous irrigation-related fees. So an example would be past due fees, tampered meter box, damaged meter. So that's more, and then you can see the current revenue and proposed revenue change. So these are not necessarily per household, it's per, per certain incidents of things that customers need from us.
Okay.
And as we look at these, we're talking, just for those of you that don't have it in front of you, I mean, like, some of them are $1 fee.
Right.
It's not a material increase. In fact, most of them are $1. One is a fixed charge on an M&M subdivision, that's a $2 fee increase. So their curb stop removal is the biggest one at a $3 increase. So they're not material increases. Okay, so there was a
sorry,
motion and there was a
Sorry, Nick.
second. We are in discussion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, 611 on the agenda is a resolution implementing the increase of 2.88% for the 2019 irrigation hookup fees effective March 1. And again, this was as recommended by the Board of Appraisers.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Mayor? Tom, question for you. I know when this originally came up back in 2016, that there was concern because we didn't know where all the pipes were located. We didn't know when they had last been maintenance because of some records that had not been kept or were not accurate, et cetera. So I'm assuming that with the new hookup fees, all of that's been remedied. We're knowing where pipes are and condition and keeping thorough records of that.
Mayor, Council Levi, so yeah, we've, when Michael was here, he's started a program, a bridge and culvert inspection program, and we're doing basically a zone every year. So we're getting pretty much through it now, and so we're getting a much better records. So, and again, that's why we've done a thorough inspection, we're finding more work. So that's why you're asking for an increase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so we did have a motion and a second, and we're ready for roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
So our last item is a resolution implementing changes in the service rates and fees outlined in the equivalent dwelling unit, the EDU, and strength class guide for wastewater and water user classifications. And this is also as recommended by the Board of Appraisers. So would you like to explain this just
Sure.
briefly? I think that might be helpful.
So Mayor and Council, on your packet, you've got a list of equivalent dwelling unit and strength class guides. So these are the flows and strengths that, through studies and some data that we know of a typical type of business site of these on the list would produce that would go to the wastewater treatment plant. And so the fees for those particular users are based on the flow and the strength. And so, and then whenever if we get a customer or some data that shows something otherwise or request, so we've had a bar and some beauty salons that we looked at in this last fiscal year that, and looked at some actual data. And so we actually ended up changing the flow or the strength on those, and which reduced their rates on those particular classes. So that's really all this is. It's just adopt this new chart with these flows and strengths.
To the mayor, council, to the kind of customer service of the city, do members of our community, are they aware that they can talk to you and have, say, a beauty salon? If there's only any complaint I get, it's out of beauty salons sometimes where they feel that the rate's too high, and I didn't know that they can come talk to you and maybe have consideration for. My mom owned a beauty salon, so I have a soft spot for beauty salons. Yes.
Mayor, Councilman
Yes.
Anytime that we have someone come in for a building permit or that, we go through their fees with them. And if they have questions, we explain the options for changing information on those. The EDU class for the beauty salons and barbershops used to be at 150 gallons per day per seat. And after we did a study of a number of them here within the city, we found that it sat more around 65 gallons per day per seat. And so we've been utilizing that based on that available data, and this is just cleanup. The other thing we added was the single-family dwelling, which is one equivalent dwelling unit was inadvertently not on the chart for some reason, and so that was also updated in the chart as well.
So there's been an adjustment from 150 to 65 already.
Yes.
When did that adjustment occur?
We've been utilizing that number for probably a year or a little more since we did that study. And that was, council has authorized the engineering division to use the best available data. If people are able to provide us with, like businesses, the water consumption over a year period, we can look at that and make adjustments to what we charge based on those informations. We're currently working on a study for restaurants. Unfortunately, that wasn't ready for this particular one, but may come forward at a later date.
So there's already an administrative mechanism in place. Is it for other categories as well?
For anytime they are able to provide data that shows what their actual usage may be, where council has authorized us to use that data.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. I'll let people know that. Yeah, thank you.
Just, Madam Mayor, just questions on some of these here, like restaurants drive-in per seat and then restaurant sit-down per seat. I'm not, drive-in per seat, help me.
So that would be a restaurant with a drive-in would be like a fast food restaurant.
Right,
A
per seat.
sit-down one would be more, your Applebee's.
I know what a drive-in, I'm
something
just
like
trying to, where are the seats in the drive-through?
Well, so that would be with, not a drive-in, but with a drive-through. So there,
Oh, okay.
it's the difference between a fast food restaurant with a drive-through rather than
one
a
without.
sit-down without.
Even though it's the same GPD? Okay.
Correct.
And then we have three different, I see laundry mats, we have three different listings, but it's the same 500 per machine. So is there some reason to having all these different categories?
It was the way it was set up prior to
Okay.
me being here.
Okay.
Mayor Kling, Daniel, so like a Frugal's on 12th Avenue with no seating,
They,
how is that determined? Do they come to you with what their actual usage is?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, yes, they provided us data from other locations that they had to show what their water consumption was, and we assessed them fees based on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presence and being knowledgeable to answer these questions. It's appreciated.
You're welcome.
Are there any other further questions on this? Okay, so with that, I would stand for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
So-
You thought, I was making all the motions, you thought I did that one too?
Yeah, I think I got that messed up.
Okay, so that concludes our meeting for this evening, with the exception of we do have an executive session. And so I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 1E to consider preliminary negotiations involving matters of trade or commerce in which the governing body is in competition with governing bodies in other states or nations.
So moved.
On second.
Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
I'm sorry. Yes.
And Hogaboom?
Yes.
And as usual, you will probably be gone when we come back, and no decisions are made, but we will adjourn and come back into this session to adjourn the meeting when we're done. And thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for your interest. We appreciate it.
Take like 5 minutes before.